Wonder my did you get the message, Turk?
Uh, he hasn't responded as yet, sir.
Alright, cool. I'll give it till 6:10. Okay. Um, Let me see. Cool. All right. You can see my screen, right, Demo?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Okay. This is where we had left off last time. We had finished an activity where we were supposed to identify a particular tool being used, given a scenario, a short snippet of a scenario. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be continuing from then, looking at the two approaches to BPI or business process integration. Two concepts that we'd have looked at earlier on in, I think it was Unit 1, the top-down approach to system integration, and the bottom-up approach to system integration. But we're going to be looking at them in the context of business process integration. All right. All right. So yeah, we know the tools. Now that we know the tools, we're going to talk about the two main approaches and using them. When you're designing a BPI solution, you have to decide whether you want to start from a business process and work down to the technology, or you're going to start from existing technologies and you build up to the business process. Similar to the way that we'd have talked about bottom up and top down in the past. So these two ways of approaching it, these two approaches, they're called the top down process centric approach and the bottom up code centric approach. And we're going to look at each one. Okay. So the top down approach, that starts by defining the high level business processes and then it maps them to a technology solution. Right? You can think of it as you'd begin by saying, what does the business need to happen? What is the ideal workflow? Looking at the hospital example that we're looking at, you'd start by mapping out the entire patient care process from admissions to discharge. So from you enter the hospital to you leave. Then you'd ask, what happens at each step, right? Who is involved in each step? What data moves where in each step? And then you draw out the process first, and then you'd figure out which system and tools will make each step happen or make each action or each step happen, right? The advantage to the top-down approach is that it would ensure that there's alignment with business goals. The business process drives the technology and not the other way around. So you'd find that non-technical stakeholders, like in this example, doctors and nurses and administrators, they'd be able to understand and contribute to the design because it starts in their language. It doesn't start in code. So we're not starting with the technical and then trying to work our way backward. We're starting with the problem first, and we're trying to come up with a solution in a non-technical way. All right? It makes sense? So that was advantage. Disadvantage to it is that you find that it is possible to overlook technical constraints, right? So you could design the most beautiful workflow in the world. But then if, for example, the existing system can't support it, then you're gonna have a gap. And it can also be slower to implement because you're doing all that process mapping before any technical work begins, right? So with this disadvantage, um, the reason why we said that it is possible to overlook a technical constraint is because when you're looking at the solution in a non-technical, sorry, not the solution, the problem in a non-technical way, and you try to find solutions that don't involve code or apps or whatever, you just try to figure out, how you'd solve this in just I guess, a general way. After you've done that, then you have to find the app or the solution or the process or the code that would fill in and solve that problem. And you might find that what you're trying to do is either it can't be done by some technology. Well, I guess not to say that it can't be done, but it might be a case where your solution it might have made a few assumptions about the assumptions about the solution that you would have put in if you could put one in. Tell me if I'm making sense before I continue. The more you're following.
Uh, I think
All right,
you
can you
can
give
go
me your
over that.
understanding? You want me to go over? All right, tell me your understanding first and then I'll go over.
So
Understand?
it's like they're starting. It's like they're starting off with understanding what is the goals of the business before they start to map anything with the technology.
Right. Mm-hmm. And
So
I'm
it's
saying,
like
go ahead, yeah.
so that's like knowing what the business expects out of
Mm-hmm.
them first before starting to use the technology that
Right,
they would want.
right. So as you said, yes, you make sure that you understand what the problems are. And so this particular approach doesn't only involve finding out what the problems are, it also involves writing out what the solution to the problems are. But it doesn't write out the solution in a way where it names any product or any type of code or any framework that would be used. It just basically talks about like a hypothetical placeholder system that you would put in that you, as the integrator, would say, so we put system A here that would solve this, and this problem. But then when you find out that you move further into the system integration process or the BPI integration process, sorry, the BP integration process, um, you find that the roadmap or the blueprint that you had set out to solve this particular part of the integration problem is maybe it's too complex or maybe it's not feasible or it could be that the problem, sorry, the product that you're trying to implement or you would put in this gap is maybe too expensive. And I guess that would be an example of it being too feasible. But yeah, so that's thinking about it from a process centric standpoint. All right. Okay. Tariq, welcome. What we're talking about today is the two approaches to um, business process integration, the top-down process-centric approach, and also the bottom-up, what's it again? The bottom-up code-centric approach. So just to quickly reiterate, the top-down process-centric approach is where, as the integrator, you will try to map out all of the problems in a non-technical way, and then try to fit in solutions also in a non-technical way. So the advantage to this is when you map out all the problems and solutions in a way that does not involve any products or any code, you get pretty good feedback from all of the stakeholders involved because you're able to talk to them in their own language. Instead of saying that I'm going to, build an app using Django or using Java that's going to be able to handle your inputs and then give you a REST API on the output. None of the technical people, non-technical people, will be able to understand that. So you say to them in a way that they understand, like after they read their prescription, they'll be able to use that and feed it into the system. And then, the system will do some processing and give them an output. And when it gives them an output, it will trigger some action that will take it to, another system, right? So you talk to them, talk to the stakeholders in a non-technical way. You talk to them in a way that they understand so that you're able to get some feedback on what type of solution that you'd implement for this particular problem, right? So that is the process-centric way. And the advantage being that you get to have feedback throughout the entirety, throughout the continuation of the project or the duration of the project. You get feedback from the stakeholders that are involved. And I was saying that a disadvantage would be that it is entirely possible for you to overlook certain technical constraints because the solutions that we're proposing, because they were thought of as first being non-technical, it is possible that when you then move on to the step that has you replacing the non-technical solution with a technical one, or you remove the placeholder and you fit it in with an actual code solution or a ready-made process solution, you may find that the code solution and the ready-made process solution is either not the right fit, because it was not feasible, or maybe it was too complex, maybe it wasn't complex enough, maybe it was too expensive, or some other reason, right? Okay. So that's the top-down process-centric approach. It starts with the business processes and then it maps out the technology secondarily. Okay. Um, Tariq, since you just came in, tell me if you understand what we are going through. That was the first thing that we'd have covered, so you haven't really missed anything.
I understand it so far, sir.
Mhm, good. Okay, so next we're going to be looking at the, no, lie matter. Oh, no, yes. We're going to be looking at the bottom-up code-centric approach now. So the bottom-up approach is the opposite. You start with existing code and systems, and then you build integrations from the technical components upward. Instead of mapping out the ideal business processes first, you look at what the systems you have already. Mm. You look at what APIs are already available, and you look at the data formats that they use, and you start connecting them. And then the business process would emerge from those technical connections. So the advantage to that, the advantage of the bottom-up approach is that it would leverage the existing infrastructure. You don't really have to redesign anything per se. You don't have to redesign any of the existing systems. You'd be working with what you already have. You'd be working with what's already there. And because you're working with what's already there, you find that it's faster for technically skilled teams because they can start building immediately. It's not a case where they have to be designing a particular system and thinking about what connection needs to go where. Well, I mean, thinking about what connection needs to go where is still something that they have to consider because at the moment, even though there's existing infrastructure, you might find that because we're doing an integration, we don't currently already have any connections between our systems. So I guess the work comes in where you have to be thinking about the integration side of things instead of having to build tools or solutions that need to be connected. The existing infrastructure is already there. So all you need to do is connect them in a way that brings value to the organization. So that's the code-centric approach or the bottom-up code-centric approach. The disadvantage, however, is that it may not always align well with the business objectives. You may find that you'll end up with a technically elegant integration that doesn't actually match with how the business works. And in this case, it's also harder for non-technical staff to follow because you started from a code or a ready-made product standpoint. It was code first as opposed to process first, right? So in this case, the technical team, they'd be able to understand what is being built because, it might be a case where using the existing infrastructure, they had their own understanding of what the problem was. And they said that, okay, since they already have this system here and this server here and this API here, we should be able to use it and implement it in such a way, reorganize it or connect these systems in such a way that it gives the stakeholders the value that they want. So they start doing that. And at the end of the integration process, they hand over to the non-technical people. They weren't ever consulted because it was just a case where the technical team assumed that they wanted to build out the process this way. And because they were only using the technologies and infrastructure that they had on hand or that already existed, you could also find that some of the problems that needed to be solved weren't solved or could not have been solved because they weren't going out and designing a new system from scratch. They were just using what they had at the moment and built a system around what was already available to them. And I know that the way I'm saying this makes it sound bad, but I don't want you to think that one is better than the other. Like all the other things that we've been talking about so far in systems integration, it's just a different approach. And it's not to say that it will cause these disadvantages to come up, but it can. Just like how the top-down process-centric approach has its disadvantages. The bottom-up code-centric approach also comes with its disadvantages. Tell me if I'm clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so a while ago, I had Damoy give me his understanding in his own words of the top-down approach. Tariq, let me ask you to give me your understanding of the bottom-up approach. To business process integration.
So from my understanding of from this approach is the opposite of the previous one. Basically, we're using pre-existing technologies and we're tackling the problem from a technical aspect instead of a
Mhm,
non-technical aspect.
mhm,
So we use existing tools like existing systems or APIs to
mhm,
tackle the problem.
Okay. Good. All right. Very good. Okay. So what we want to look at now is a comparison between the two, the top down versus the bottom up. We're going to look at them side by side. Right? So the top down approach that starts with business processes first, and it works toward the technology. Bottom up, like I said, starts with the existing technology and it works toward the business process. The top-down process or the approach is better when business business alignment is critical. When you have non-technical people that need to be involved in design, and also when you're building something new rather than connecting legacy systems. And I guess legacy systems in this case doesn't necessarily have to mean old systems. It could also mean, systems that were existing before, right? Ones that are not brand new. So that's top down. And bottom up is better when you have a strong technical team, when you're working mainly with existing systems that have already been well documented, the APIs are stable and solid, and when speed is more important than the perfect business alignment. Yeah. So there are different needs that need to be met, and either approach fills those needs better than the other. For the hospital scenario, what I want to ask you, hospital scenario, let me bring that back to hospital scenario. Did I have the hospital scenario? Let's know. At the hospital, the HR vendor provides blah, blah, blah. Oh no, I didn't have the scenario on a slide by itself. But let me just go back over the hospital scenario. Let's see. Give me one sec. Let me find my notes. Blah, blah. Right. Okay. So the hospital scenario that we had looked at from last class is where you have a hospital that needs to have three different business processes integrated. The electronic health record system, billing and insurance claim system, and a pharmacy management system. I had that in a notepad before. I wonder if it's still open. No, it might still be open. Oh, that's crazy. Look at that. It's still open. All right, so these are the three systems that we want to have integrated. Put that there. Is it this one? Put that here. Okay. And I'm going back to this slide. Give me one sec. Right, okay. So for the hospital scenario, what I want to ask you is, which approach would you recommend? And I want you to think about it in terms of the scenario that we're looking at, or looked at before, where The hospital has a limited IT team. Clinical staff need to understand and help to configure the solution. And the business process, that is patient care, is complex and must be done right. In a case like this, any mistakes could severely affect patient safety. So looking at I'm not on the wrong slide. I'm not on the right slide. Looking at the two approaches that we'd have compared just now, which one do you think would be a better fit for the integration that we're looking at? Let me hear from you guys.
Second,
You want to go back through the comparison?
yeah.
All right, so let me see. For the comparison, what I was saying was top down is better when you have when business alignment is critical. So if it is a case where it is extremely important for all stakeholders to give their feedback and know exactly what is happening at all points, top down is more important there. When you have non-technical people that need to be involved in the design, and when you're building something new rather than connecting legacy systems. And then bottom up now, that one is better when you have a strong technical team, when you're working mainly with existing systems, and you already have well-documented APIs, stable APIs, and when speed is more important than speed is more important than perfect business alignment. So given the hospital scenario that we had, I don't remember if this was a detail that I mentioned, but for the scenario, which approach would you recommend for the hospital scenario that has a limited IT team? They have clinical staff that need to understand and help configuration. Sorry, I keep saying configuration. They need to help configure the system, the solution, and the business process, that is patient care, is a complex process that must be done right because any mistakes could affect patient safety. Think about it for a bit and tell me which approach you'd go with and why.
Top down.
And say why? Let me hear your thoughts.
Well, you said the business process needs to be mapped correctly first. So the top-down process always starts at the business process first before it goes into using any of the technology. And also because it is a hospital, and as you told us at a point, is that the bottom up wouldn't work since it well, you could use it, but not really. Not really for this. So you need to ensure that everything is done correctly before that because you're dealing with people's lives and things like that. So you need to make sure everything is properly done before you can just up and say you can use it.
Right. So the implication, Terry, did you want to give your input as well?
I agree with them, way.
Okay. So the implication that we get from it being a hospital, like I'd said, is a case where business process, in this case, the type of integration that we're trying to do, would directly affect people's lives, right? The well-beings of others. So it's something that you definitely want to get working or get mapped out, like as a process first, before you can jump into which technologies or which apps you're going to use or which code you're going to write. Yeah. It's not a case where you want to rely too heavily on what already exists in the event that what already exists is not sufficient. So if it's a case where you need to have a good plan, a good blueprint first, and also a good plan or good blueprint in this particular case would come from speaking directly to the people that are going to be involved. In this case, that would be clinical staff, the doctors, the nurses, administrators, the people that are going to be using this system or this integration, the people that are going to, I guess, directly benefit from its implementation. I guess in this case, the people that are going to benefit from the implementation would be, I suppose, the patients, but there would also be benefit in the form of making work easier, making work more efficient. Um, I guess I'm making assumptions in this case, but it goes along with the scenario where the solution is being built for the staff that are doing the work in order to provide a better service to the patients, right? So yeah, because it is a case where we need to have a solid plan before implementing or before executing, because it is a hospital, it would be best for us to go with the top-down approach first. Let me see. Oh, and aside from the reason that we have in the slide on screen, it being a limited IT team is also something that you have to consider. When you're going with the bottom-up approach, the one that deals more with speed, having a limited IT team would affect the speed at which you're able to integrate, even though it's a case where you may already have existing infrastructure. It's a better case where when you have the limited IT team, regardless of how limited they would take their time and map out all of the problems that they can identify, all the problems that are being proposed or raised by each one of the non-technical stakeholders, get a good understanding of what the problem is, and then map out a problem based on their feedback. And then once they have the idea of what the solution to the problems are, then they can go ahead and map out a one-to-one equivalent solution, like a technical solution to the problem. It says technical staff need to understand and help configure, right? Yeah. Patient safety requires the process to be mapped correctly before technology is applied here. Okay. Tell me if it makes sense. Do we get that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. In my notes I have here, it says top down is more appropriate because clinical staff need to be involved. The IT team is small, so the business process driven design is more practical. Patient safety requires the process to be mapped accordingly before technology is applied. Yeah, okay. So for a hospital with limited IT staff and complex clinical workflows, the top-down approach makes more sense. You'd want the doctors and the nurses to be driving the process design in this case, because they're the ones that are going to be using it. With the IT team implementing the technology to support the design. So the process, that would be a process-centric integration approach. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at this activity here so that we can try to solidify the idea. Okay, so we're going to go through two quick scenarios. And you're going to tell me which approach that you use in this case and why. So scenario one, we'll have a fintech startup. They have 3 developers and they just built out a new REST API for payment processing. They need to integrate it with two partner banks, sorry. And they need to integrate as fast as possible to launch next month. In a case like this, look at some of the key terms that we have and tell me which approach you'd use in this case and why. Think about it for a bit. A fintech startup has 3 developers and just built a new REST API for payment processing. They need to integrate it with 2 partner banks' existing APIs as fast as possible to launch next month.
Can I answer, sir?
Oh, go ahead. What's that?
If I can
Yeah, you can answer. Go ahead, yeah, man.
answer now.
What? Second? I didn't hear you. Your audio seems to be in
I'd
and
say
out.
the bottom up approach is the
Okay.
bottom up.
See why. Yeah, tell me why.
The bottom up, sir. Because
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
it
listening.
uses
Tell me why.
oh sorry, the internet even has a problem.
Okay.
Seems. It starts at the technical aspect, and it's a faster
Mm-hmm.
paced approach, which uses
Mm-hmm.
pre-existing technologies.
Mm-hmm. What are the pre-existing technologies in this case?
The bank's existing APIs.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure. Did you mention anything about the speed?
Oh yes, sir. I said it. The bottom up approach would be best because it's a fast-paced approach.
What makes it fast-paced? I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want to know what part of the scenario told you that it was meant to be, that they needed speed.
At the last part where they need the bank's existing APIs as fast as possible to launch next month.
Mm-hmm. Right. Good. Damoy, do you have any feedback on that? Do we agree with Tariq? Damoy. All right. Damoy can give us feedback when he can. But yes, I agree with the bottom-up approach in this case, where we have our technical team, we have our existing APIs. The plan is more or less straightforward. Um, we have an integration process that we need to do where we need to connect an API to two banks' APIs, existing APIs. So we have everything that we need. We have the APIs, we have the bank's APIs, and we have our APIs. All we need to do is create a process that allows us to link the two of them. So that makes the process relatively straightforward. Um, so in a case like that, yeah. And also, as you said, the speed is a factor because it needs to be done within a month. That's relatively quickly. So yeah, I would agree with the bottom up approach in this case. Yeah. Okay. The next one. Scenario two. A Jamaican government ministry is redesigning how citizens apply for land titles. They need to integrate the application portal, the surveillance system, and the land registry. Citizens and clerks need to understand how the new process works before it launches. Give me your thoughts. Don't let me hear from you on this one, please.
Sir, um, I think top down.
And say why.
So the first thing I would say is like, since they want the citizens and the clerks should understand the process in the beginning, I think there should be more like focus on the processing so that they can understand those processes. So the
How
top
would they get that
down,
understanding?
uh, from the team,
Come again?
from the team, or
Okay, but
from
how
the
though? How? Tell me how.
right.
Think about it. All right, the question I want you to answer is um yes, they need to understand and they need to get that information from the team, but how could it be a thing where when the process launches, all parties involved know how to use the application. I don't think that made it any clearer. Think about it in terms of feedback from the stakeholders. Since it's a case where we have the citizens and the clerks need to be able to understand the process. Tariq, if you have any feedback, you can also chime in.
I agree with the top down as there's the approach should be best since the citizens and clerks must understand it. I don't want to use technical terms with the citizens and clerks. So the top down would use non-technical terms and it helps them to understand how the business process are going to be taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there was another point that I wanted to hear from both of you. Yes, we're using non-technical terms to talk to the stakeholders, but one thing I wanted to have you guys think about as well is it's not just the team explaining to them, the non-technical stakeholders. It would also, you think of it more as a conversation where the team itself or the IT team, the integration team, they need to get a good understanding of what the problem actually is. So they need to talk to the citizens and the clerks and get information from them. So it would be a case where they'd have maybe for the citizens, they'd have information like posted on social media, polls, infographics, things like that, and then they get feedback by people interacting with that media, right? So they'd be able to gather information through whether it be market research or just focus groups or however they choose to get their information so that they can get an understanding of what the problem is being faced by the citizens. And then however they decide to approach the clerks now, it will be done in a similar way where they need to be able to make sure that they have a good understanding of what the problem actually is by talking to them directly, since they're the people that are going to be using the system. And then once they get all that information, they can go and they can think about a solution and communicate that solution back to the people that are going to be using it, that being the citizens and the clerks. And once they communicate that feedback back to the users, based on the information that they collected from the users in the first place, then they'd be able to get a good understanding of whether or not their proposed solution actually makes sense, if it's actually going to provide value to those who are going to be using it, right? So that's one of the things that I want you guys to think about when you're answering questions like this. Think about it as a conversation between the integrators and the end users, or the stakeholders rather, right? So it's not just a case where they're just going to tell them how it's going to work. Because the system integrators, or the BPIs, the business process integrators, they themselves need to know how they're going to implement this system, how they're going to solve this problem. And the only way they can know how to solve the problem is if they understand the problem, first of all, right? Will make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so right. Okay. Let me see. There was another point I wanted to think about this scenario. Government ministries redesigning, blah, blah, blah. They need to integrate application portal, right? And I guess you could think about it like it being a government ministry type of project. You may find that, I guess it kind of loosely
Government need to
implies
make
that there's going.
sure, like, so like the government need to make sure that everything is done properly. So they need to take more time because they're dealing with more than just like a small range of people, and it has to go around for the citizens of Jamaica. And if you,
Right.
as a government ministry, you need to ensure that everything is done properly for those people and nothing is out of place or out of balance or anything like that.
Right.
So you need
Okay,
to make
good.
sure
That
the
is the point.
integration is good.
Good. That is the point I was going to make a while ago. Because if you have any process that isn't working the way it should, it could potentially end in legal consequences. So yeah, that is the point I was trying to make. Very good. Thank you for that point. Right. So yeah, Top-down works better for that scenario. So the key takeaway that I want you to get is that yes, it will seem upfront which one is a clear winner, which approach is a clear winner per scenario. But it's not to say that one is always going to be right for every scenario, or the other one is. It's not a case where top down is always correct and bottom up is always correct. It very much depends on the scenario, on the situation. Yeah. It also depends on who is going to be involved, what is going to be the priority, and how complex the business process is. And the complexity can be considered technical complexity and also non-technical complexity. All right. Okay. So that was where we left off for last week's stuff. Give me one sec. Let me see. I think, was it this? Okay. Some short slides to help to solidify the stuff that we'd have just done a while ago. That's one sec. Today's Tuesday. Oh, you know what? There was other thing I wanted to make mention of as well. One sec. Yeah. All right. So one of the tools that we'd have looked at last week, the tools used for business process integration. Let me just name the tools just to keep everybody on the same page to make sure that we're all aligned. These are the tools that we had. Software development kits, business rules, natural language syntax, visual drag and drop, Avid Team Player, and Legacy EDI. The one I wanted to talk on a little bit was Avid Team Player. That term, Avid Team Player, I got it from the course outline. But in doing my own research, I was trying to find out if that term, specifically Avid Team Player, was one that was used widely outside of the course in the context of system integration. And I personally did not find anything. So I'm not sure exactly where the term came from or who wrote that term in the course outline. So if anything, you're doing any research, what I wanted to do is give you a bit more context of what is meant by Avid Team Player so that when you're doing your research, you can relate it back to the term. And also, I don't want us to go forward changing that term to something else. I want to have you guys continue using the term Avid Team Player for the sake of, I guess, it being what Triple CJ has named that particular concept. So when you're writing your exam, you could be describing Avid Team Player, and if you don't use the term Avid Team Player, it may, you might get marks taken off because it's a case where you were supposed to use back the topic as it was outlined in the course outline. But yeah, to put some more context to what I mean by Avid Team Player, in the wider industry in systems integration, you'll see this particular concept noted as or referred to as collaborative workflow design or multi-user authoring. Wait, do I have that in my slides? Oh no, I don't think I have that in my slides, but yeah, just take note of this. So it's usually called collaborative workflow design or multi-user authoring. And different vendors will use different labels for this particular concept. The concept is the same though, where we have multiple people working on the same platform in real time. But like I said, for this course, as we continue, we'll just refer to it as Avid Team Player, at least until I can get some more clarity on why that term was used. Is that clear? We go do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Okay, so let me switch back to this. Okay. Um, Give me one moment. Yeah, I think we're going to move back into another scenario. How fun. Sorry for drawing on my nose, by the way. I think it's like spring or something. Okay, let's take a look at another scenario. We have a mid-sized Jamaican hospital that has three systems that don't currently talk to each other. Okay, I just realized we're looking back at the same scenario that we did from last week. It is the electronic health record system. Where is my notepad? This one here. Of the electronic health record system, the billing and insurance claim system, and the pharmacy management system. Nurses will currently walk paper forms between the departments manually. The hospital has a small IT team of 2 people. They also have clinical informatics officers who understand the workflow, but they don't write code. So they don't know what the problem is. They just don't know how to build a solution. The hospital wants the integration to be done in 6 months. So I have 4 questions I want you to answer. And I want you to think about each one of them for a few minutes, and then we can discuss them. So the first question that I want you to take a look at, let me get this off screen. Actually, let me keep this on screen as well if needed. So I have, wait, oh no, did I lose it? This, okay. Can I keep both of them on? Okay. And then the 4 questions. All right. So the first question, should the hospital use a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach? I'm sure you'd have seen that question coming. So I want you to think about it. Given the scenario that we have here, did I not copy everything? So given the scenario that we have here on screen, what approach would you specify or would you propose? I don't want you to justify your answer. Think about all of the implications that we have given the scenario, it being a hospital. Think about the current processes or the current workflow, data flow. Who is involved? What data is involved? What's supposed to happen at each step? We're focusing on this question one at the moment. In case this helps, a definition for you. Clinical informatics. Can I get an answer? Or am I rushing you?
Sure, this one gonna take a little bit of time.
All right, no problem. You got this.
I'd say the top down, sir.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
So the team, the clinical informatics officers understands the workflows but doesn't
Mm-hmm.
understand the codes.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to go at a non-technical aspect first before reaching the technology,
Mm-hmm.
and they want it done in 6 months. And
Mm-hmm.
the top-down approach does as is approaches at a slower pace.
Mm-hmm. What makes it slow?
Say that again, sir.
I'm asking what makes it slower.
In this scenario, are in the top-down.
You said top down. Did you say that top down is slow?
Yes,
Or
sir.
the integration process in this case would need to be slow? Can you say why it would need to be slow?
I was saying it's a slow approach because you're
Oh,
going from
right.
the you're
Go on.
approaching approaching the business processes before you're approaching the technologies.
Yes, and I want to know what of that makes it slow. Going with we're approaching the process design first. Why is it slow? Slower.
Because we have to identify the problems and we have to find a solution for those problems.
Mm-hmm. And getting a better understanding. The IT team get a better understanding of the problem
Yeah.
comes in what form. If you want to hand that question over to Damo, you can go ahead.
Thinking, sir.
No problem. Damo, also if you're ready to give me your feedback, you can go ahead as well.
For me, sir, I agree with Terry that it is top down.
Mm-hmm.
My reasoning for saying that is that, well, it's in the same way that Terry says, but also that they only have a small IT team of 2 persons.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had a bigger team, it would have been easier to like do bottom up, but it would still wouldn't be a bottom up. It'd be
Uh-huh.
the top down.
Mhm.
Uh,
There are a few other key points that were made that point more toward top down being more suitable. So let me see.
Especially since it's a hospital. Yeah, forgot that part.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a
that
hospital
as well,
system.
yeah. So it being such a sensitive scenario, or the organization being such that type of organization that requires the care and the um attention to detail, since it's a case where they're dealing with patients and people's lives and well-being, you want to be able to map out solutions to each of those problems in a way where we're not just making assumptions. Another key point that reinforces this reasoning is that what do you mean? The clinical informatics officers, those people, those stakeholders would be involved, would need to be made involved because they are the ones that have a hands-on understanding of what the problem is. Um, so being able to approach those informatics officers and getting feedback from them and building your solution based off of that feedback is what would guide the design of the solution. So that's something that would also definitely need to happen before you get to the point of doing anything technical. Getting a better understanding of what the problem is from the clinical informatics officers and being able to map out in a non-technical way what a solution could look like. And then once you get that information, once both parties, or not both parties, but all parties are aligned, because it's not just the clinical informatics officers we need to talk to. We also need to talk to the nurses that have the problem currently of having to manually walk paper forms from one system to another. We ask them what the problem is, what problem they're facing, get their feedback on what they believe a solution could look like, and then you as a technical team will translate that non-technical solution into a technical one, if applicable. All right. So you take your time and you get the information that you need, and you make sure to build out a solution that fills all the gaps where a gap is noticed. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh. Let me see if I can think of any other things. Let me look at my notes as well. So it says clinical staff need to drive the process design. The small IT team means that the business process-driven design is more practical. Patient safety requires the workflow to be mapped correctly before technology is applied, right? Clinical informatics officers are a key asset in this integration. They are the ones that understand the workflow the best and can lead the process mapping. Okay. So yeah, top down here is the clear choice because of the clinical informatics officer becoming the bridge between the solution and the problem, or the problem and the solution. If you had gone the bottom up approach, the two IT people that are building out the integration, they will be designing workflows that they don't fully understand. And because they don't fully understand it, the clinical staff would have no input until it's too late. Right? It would be the IT team making assumptions based off of what they think the problem is. They wouldn't be communicating with anybody. They'd just be um, building out a solution quick and fast. And it could be a case where what they thought was important is not actually what provides value to the hospital. You know, the more I talk about this, the more I just prefer top down, just in general. I kind of don't like bottom up because of all these disadvantages that I keep hearing about. Don't know if you guys feel the same way. Well, here's the next question. Going back to the tools that we'd have looked at before, and I don't, can I get the tools on screen as well? The next question would have been, which BPI tools would you recommend and why? I want you to pick at least 3 in this case, and I'll put the tools back on screen. So these are my tools. I'll see if I can. Actually, no, you don't need to set up just yet because we know the question already. The question is, what tools would you use? This is the scenario. Yeah. And I want you to pick at least 3.
So for one of them, I think Avid Team Player.
Mm-hmm. All right. Can you say why?
Because the 3 systems don't talk to each other currently. The electronic health records system, the billing and the insurance, and the pharmacy management system. So they're not talking to each other or doing anything collaborative with each other that would be required, especially since it's a hospital system, and you want everything to be integrated with each other in order to connect so that certain processes will be done quickly.
Okay, hold on. I believe we may have a misunderstanding as to what Avid Team Player is, even after I went through the clarification a while ago. Tariq, I just want to see if that is something I caused. Can you tell me what your understanding of Avid Team Player is? Assuming that Avid Team Player is the correct, or is one of the correct tools that we need. Because I agree that Avid Team Player is a correct tool that we need in an integration like this. But the reason that you gave a while ago does not align so much with what I had in mind. Tariq, can you give me your feedback? And if anything, it might be my fault. I just wanted to make sure that we are aligned.
Probably not sure. Probably just me.
No sense. All right, Tariq saying to come back. So the avid team player is not a way of connecting the systems. Avid team player, or let me use the terminology that I would have used just now to explain what it is. It is collaborative workflow design or multi-user authoring. So whenever I say Avid Team Player, what I want you to think about is having one Google Docs file where more than one people are writing it at the same time. Yeah?
Sir,
Yeah.
my Wi-Fi have been shaken. What are you talking about now?
Oh,
The audio
uh,
cut out.
the question I asked was, what BPI tools do you think would be essential to help with the integration, the business process integration, given this scenario? And Damoy was suggesting at least one of them to be avid team player. And I was trying to get an understanding of why I'm such a avid team player. Not that it's wrong. Um, but yeah, I wanted to know if you could give your reasoning as to why avid team player would be useful in a system integration project like this or a business process integration project like this.
I'm a team player in this
Oh,
on
your
a
Wi-Fi.
project. You can simultaneously.
All right, so I heard part of the word simultaneously, which makes me feel like he's more on the.
Other team players basically when
Yeah.
All right, so
Tariq.
sir, since you're
Yeah.
saying since it
Mhm.
is that it's like that, it
Mhm.
wouldn't then it would be that every team player would just make it that everybody is working on their designs and integrations at the same time, right?
Yeah, that's effectively what it means. Yeah. And just to make sure, I me and Damoy, we're not cutting you off, Tariq. It's just that your internet is, it seems to be affecting the way we're hearing you. So your audio is cutting in and out. Um, so I'm not sure if it's something you'll be able to fix, but if not, you just probably have to rely on the recording. I'm not sure if it's affecting your side as well, but we're not able to hear you very well. But yeah, going back to, or guys, give me 1 second, I'm getting a call. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so the Avid team player, it is a collaborative thing. And the reason why we'd use it is because the Avid team player gives all the stakeholders the collaborative tools that would allow them to all work on putting their own input into the integration system. And when I say it would allow them collaboratively, it's not a case to say that, the nurses and the informatics officers are going to be writing code as well. That's not their job. But also, that's not the only job that is required. There may be a coding requirement, right? And that would be handled by the most technical people by using a system maybe like the SDK or using an SDK in order for them to build out the necessary programs using the frameworks or whatever SDKs or whatever other tools that are available to them, right? But the nurses who are also going to be benefiting from this integration process or this integration platform or this integration project rather.
So
Um, Go ahead.
so it's like saying even though they're not technically doing anything on the system, they can put their input into where, oh yes, they can put their input into where they see fit, since they are going to be the ones using the system.
Using it, right. Okay. I just want to clarify the way you said technically a while ago, the ordering of your words made it sound like you were saying that they're not going to be doing anything. It is not
No,
that they're
no,
going
no.
to
They're
be,
going to,
yeah, yeah, I know, I understand. Because the way you said it is that you said they're technically not going to be doing anything, but what you meant to say was they're not going to be doing anything technical.
yeah,
Yeah, right. So yes, they're not going to be doing anything super technical. And when we say technical, we mean like code wise. It might
yeah,
be a case where the people that need to input configurations that determine how the process is supposed to make the data flow through the system, maybe that's something that's not known by the most technical team. So they're just building the platform that allows a user to input some data, and then the data can be processed in a way that is determined by some configuration. That configuration would be best known by the nurses and most definitely, maybe the nurses, but most definitely the clinical informatics officers, because they're the ones that have the closest eye on what the problem is. They know how the system, wait, they know the business rules. So they would be the one that would basically, if they're the ones that are have, at least some technical knowledge, they'd be able to take the rules defined by the business and translate it into something closely related to code. Not necessarily code, but something closely related to code. Or if not code, just be able to direct the IT team in how certain events need to trigger certain data flows. I hope that wasn't terribly confusing. So yeah, with the Avid Team Player tool, it would allow for different stakeholders to work on the same platform at the same time. And it would help to allow for better communication if it's a case where um, we're able to have each person working on the system all at the same time in their respective areas. When they start executing or testing the application, testing the workflows, if it's a case where there is misalignment or misconfigurations, we'd be able to find those misconfigurations and misalignments quickly and be able to account for them by communicating, getting feedback from all the stakeholders, and reconfiguring. So in that case, the Avid Team Player tool would allow for other tools to be used in this case. Let me see. Can I get your feedback on what other tools you think could be used before I read off my notes? So assuming the Avid Team Player is one of them, what else do you think is useful in this case?
Can I go back on the tool, sir?
Go back on the tools. Oh, what's this? It's on there.
natural language syntax.
Can you say why?
Well, natural language syntax would entail that it'll be said in like, let's say that word. It will be the code would be it will be put in plain language, so it's understandable by people not with technical knowledge. So
Right.
like the nurses and
Right.
other persons on the staff would understand what they're looking at on the system, making
Right.
it easier for them to understand what is going on or what
Right.
is going to be expected or things like that.
One point I want to make, it is not only the natural language syntax is not only going to allow people to understand what they're looking at, it's also going to allow them to input configurations in a way that doesn't require very much technical knowledge. So I want you to think of the natural language syntax as a tool that they can use to input information into the system, right? So think of it like you have a part of the system that was built that's supposed to say whether or not a prescription needs to be automatically approved or if it's something that needs manual approval. It could be a case where one of the configurations that are entered could be entered naturally or in natural language that says something like, when a controlled substance is prescribed, require pharmacist approval, right? So the natural language syntax is very similar to the business rules, and also the visual drag and drop. Like I said last week, these first four are all very similar. Well, actually, to be honest, I'd say that 2, 3, and 4 are all very similar. It's just the interface that you use to input configurations into the system that has been built using SDKs. Yeah. But the point you made a while ago about using natural language syntax for the non-technical people like the nurses and such is a very good point. Which other one? Give me the next one.
I'd say the visual drag and drop, sir.
Can you say why?
Since it's the who again, the clinical informatics officer understands the workflows, so they will be able to understand the visual drag and drop since it uses graphical workflows.
Okay. So yeah. And again, just to make sure that we're on the same page, it's not a case where they only need to understand it when they look at it. They also need to be able to understand it so that they themselves can enter configurations into the system. So they would enter configurations into the system using the visual drag and drop tool. So as opposed to them having to write code that determines how data flows, they'd just be using predefined blocks and arrows that basically point out on a high level how data is supposed to flow. When is data supposed to flow? What events trigger what processes? All right. What do I not say here? Clinical informatics officers can help to design workflows visually without coding. And this is a primary design tool, right? So I agree with that. Okay. Okay, so that's the three. That was three, right? Yeah. So that was visual, Avid, and natural language. So yeah. Okay. In this case, let me just check. I don't think I was wondering if the legacy EDI one was relevant. So it says if the insurance company requires EDI formats. Oh yeah, because they're trying to incorporate the billing and insurance claim systems. And I think did it say anything about the all right, no, I don't think this particular scenario mentioned that the insurance claims was using legacy systems, but the scenario that was laid out in last week's slide, this particular scenario, it explicitly mentioned something about the insurance system being old or running on older hardware, I think. Or not older hardware, but an older infrastructure that would have probably required the EDI standard. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that is when that would have been involved. But I guess because this scenario didn't explicitly mention it, we don't have to consider it. Okay, yeah. So the key insight is that we only have 2 IT people in this case. They're the ones that because we only have 2 IT people, we need to have tools that would let non-technical staff contribute more easily. So the visual drag and drop and the natural language syntax, those 2 are critical. It's not a case where you're only going to be building out the application with just the SDK alone, because that's just going to be what the developers are doing. They don't necessarily know what the configurations of the system need to be. They just need to be able to build the system and make it accommodate different configurations. Those configurations are going to be designed or defined by those who know what the business want. That be the informatics officers and also the nurses. Yeah. Right. Okay, good. The next question is, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. Okay, so the next question now. I want you to walk me through a prescription workflow. When a doctor enters a prescription into the electronic health record system, what should happen step by step across all 3 systems? I feel like this question isn't very clear because I think I told you the answer to this last week. And I don't think you could really know this. It's something that is just dependent on the scenario. All right, let me answer this question. So looking back at the scenario that was listed out before, the business process integration or the business processes that would be defined in this case would be you have the doctor enter a prescription into the electronic health record system. Let me write this down. So first we have give me my phone. You have the doctor enters the, I can't spell. I spell prescription. Into the EHR, that's the electronic health record system. So that's step one. Step two would be the business rules in this case would trigger if there is a controlled substance. So we'll have two business rules, or not necessarily business rules, or just configurations in general. Configurations would trigger one sec. For controlled substances. And then no. Okay, so do we have an if statement? I guess that would be the if statement. So we have if controlled. So if controlled, then require pharmacy approval. Else proceed automatically. Okay. The next step would have been prescription is going to be sent to the pharmacy management system. Okay. Yeah. This is actually 3. Here. This is 4. Pharmacy management system. Yeah. And that would trigger, or I guess what I want to say here is when it's sent to the pharmacy management system, what that would mean is the prescription will be prepared by the pharmacy. Prescription. Yeah. And then at the same time, so concurrently, is there a way for me to show concurrency? Let me put this as 4A. And then 4B. Wait. Let me put this as 4 and then say concurrently. And in the other step, while the prescription is being prepared by the pharmacy, the billing system will generate an insurance claim for the medication. So insurance By the way, I just want to reiterate, the reason I'm doing it for you guys is because the scenario that we have or that we had in the first place, part of it was mentioned in last week's slides, and then we'll have the other part in today's slides. Not even last week's slides. This is a part of the same slide, but that stopped early last week. So I hope I'm not confusing anybody. Just making sure that we're all on the same page, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then while that is happening concurrently, if the insurance is expired or you're not covered, they need to flag for manual review. At what point would that happen? Would you generate the insurance claim first? Yeah, I guess. So we do a check. So do a check to say, blah, 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 if the insurance then we need to trigger manual review. Yeah. And then I have the next step saying patient's health records update with prescription detail. Right here, that would happen. Well, that technically only happened. No, because I need to get it right. Six. Records are updated with okay, so this is how I have it in my head for the steps that would need to take in a particular order for this integration to work based on the spec that was given to us in the previous slides. All right. Did I lose anybody in going through this? Are we okay? Any questions on this?
No, that's fine, sir.
One thing I wanted to point out is, for example, this part here would have been an example of something that is defined by the business, right? So,
What the business rule, sir?
right, that would be a business rule. Because if it's a case where the system could be built, right, where it's supposed to take some information being the prescription, right? There doesn't necessarily have to be any kind of a check before some information is sent over to another system, or rather, there doesn't necessarily have to be a check to say that additional information needs to be sent over from one system to another. At the moment, the developers could have built a system that says, once a prescription is generated, send the information over to the pharmacy, right? It is because there is configuration that was involved by or included by the other stakeholders that say that just sending over any prescription is not something that is acceptable by the business. It is a case where we need to have checks done to see if there's a prescription that includes any particular controlled substance. And controlled substances would have just meant stuff like, the stuff that can be very easily abused, like the opiates and, other things that are used as hard drugs, right? So you'd want to have some flags put in place or some checks done to see if it's a case where we have some controlled substances being prescribed to a patient. You have somebody outside of the system take a look at the prescription to make sure that the medicine that is being prescribed is going to a person that actually needs it, and if the dosage makes sense in this particular scenario. Yeah. So this would be an example of a configuration or business rules. Similarly, I guess technically this would too. Yeah. Because the reason I put this one in and I had another step after, I would consider this step to be necessary regardless of whether this one is done. Because it is not to say that somebody is going to not get their prescription just because they don't have insurance. Yeah. So we do a check here to make sure the person has valid insurance, or is actually being covered. Their insurance actually covers the prescription. And if it doesn't, then we need to trigger a manual review. That does not mean that there needs to be an else that says, if it's not expired, then we can go ahead and do this. This needs to happen independently of whether this happens, right? So it's just a check to see if it is a case where a manual review needs to be done. And if there's a manual review done, then that would more than likely affect the amount of money that is going to be paid by the patient once they get the prescription, right? I'm not even sure. Was that a part of it? Let me see. Oh, the billing system, yeah. So yeah, I guess you could include another step that would, or not another step, another part of this process here. Well, I guess because this is a manual review and this is kind of outside of the scope of the automation of the system, it's something that would be included by a person. So instead of it automatically determining whether or not, or automatically determining the amount of money that's supposed to be paid for the medication, it's a case where somebody has to step in and manually determine how much money is going to be paid, depending on whether or not the insurance expired, or if it is, or if it doesn't cover the medication. All right. Oh, we say that good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Last question, and then we can wrap up. So let's take a look at the risk. What do you think is the biggest risk in this integration project? Think about it in the context of the challenges and best practices from Unit 3, yeah. So think about what is the biggest challenge that would potentially be faced in a case like this, and what best practice you'd use to address it in this scenario. Not necessarily what challenge is taking place, but what challenge do you see as a potential factor that need to be addressed? What challenge could come up in this case? See, can I put the challenges on screen? Do you guys have the challenges already? Or you want me to put them on screen?
I have them, sir. We can still put them up for tomorrow.
The more you need them?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Okay. That would have been last week, Tuesday. Was that right? That's best practices. Well, I guess that's still relevant. Best practices there. Oh, only some of them. 5 Friday. Challenges. Can you see them? Do I need to make them any bigger? That's okay.
That's fine, sir.
Okay. I only have the first 5. I need the other 4. When did we do the other 4? It would have been week 6 on Tuesday. But that's this one. That's this one. Sorry. When did we do the remaining 4? Oh, this is the remaining four. This is all of them. Sorry about that. If you want some pointers, I can guide you in that general direction and you can tell me what comes to mind.
Sir, I'd say the three problems I said could arise from this would be multiple vendor responsibility, conflict of dual assignments, and varying stakeholders' perspectives.
Okay. Can you tell me, well, tell me firstly how you think those could arise as challenges and what best practices you'd use to address them. So let's start with why you chose those challenges.
Okay, for the multiple vendor responsibility,
Mhm.
as you said, there's a lot of systems, and most
Mhm.
likely going to have a different system vendor for each. For the
Mhm.
electronic health record, the billing and
Mhm.
insurance, and the pharmacy management system.
But before you continue, I believe it is not more than likely. I think in the original scenario that we had gotten, I think it was explicitly stated that they were different
Uh,
vendors. But yeah, just to clarify, you can continue.
to address this, would need a reliable system integrator,
Why?
the varying stakeholders' perspectives. There's a lot of departments that are going to interact with each other, and each department are going to have their own perspectives, and some may have conflicts.
Mhm. How do we fix that?
Sir, which one, Terry? Say again.
He said multiple vendor responsibility. And he said to fix that, we have reliable system integrator. I guess also PM roles and decisions could be used for that as well. The other one he said was varying stakeholder perspectives. And I wanted to know, wait, you said varying stakeholder. What was the last one you said, Tariq? After varying stakeholder perspectives. Um, I guess another question I want to know is what best practice would we use to combat varying stakeholder perspectives? I'm not sure if he said which one.
Um, uh, the stakeholder feedback.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I'd engage with all the stakeholders,
mm-hmm.
um, not just from the start, but throughout the whole process.
Agreed, yes.
And the other problem I see that could arise would be the conflict of dual assignments, since there's a
Okay.
small IT team.
Right, okay, yeah. And then how we fix that one? While you think about that, Tamoy, did you get your question answered? Did you have some feedback you wanted to provide as well? No. Somebody heard the question?
Oh, I
Was
was
on
muted.
decision.
I thought I was answering.
Oh.
I was saying that Tariq is on track. I think he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just probably needs some help, sir.
Mm-hmm. All right, no problem. Okay, so yeah, the ones that you mentioned, I'm in agreement with. Let me see if I have any more that I would add. So
Oh,
you
and the next
said,
one would could be insufficient training and poor planning.
okay, tell me why.
Out the way for a bit.
I didn't hear that. Say again.
Move the challenges slide out to upload the scenario for a second.
Here.
What's up?
All right, let me read off some of the points that I have. So to go along with some of the points that you made, Tariq, conflict of dual assignments, that's a big one. We only have two IT people, right? And they're doing integration and they're maintaining existing systems. So a best practice that we could use to solve that is selecting a reliable systems integrator that would help to supplement the team, right? If it's a case where we are able to somehow offload some of the tasks from our IT team onto other technical people in the business, then the system integrator would be able to assist and define those roles or allocate those tasks to those people. Yeah. Um, Another one that you mentioned, Tariq, was varying stakeholder perspectives, which one is I think is an important one. So we have doctors that are going to be using the system. They're the ones that are going to be writing the prescriptions and entering those prescriptions into the system. We also have the pharmacists, which are going to be preparing the medication based on the prescriptions, and we have the billing staff, and we also have the IT team, right? They may all have different priorities. So different people may have different things that they would want the system to be able to do. And it is a case where if the IT team cannot make everybody happy, it might end up in a failed integration. So a best practice that would be used to combat this is stakeholder feedback or feedback elicitation. It's the same one. Being able to get back feedback from all of the stakeholders so that at every point in the project, everybody knows what the goal is, or more importantly, because it is the IT team or the integrator team that is supposed to be getting feedback from everybody, they'd be going around collecting information and priorities and all the important notes from each one of the different teams. And then they'd be able to prioritize or come up with a solution that meets all or most of everyone's goals. Yeah. And that again would also come in the form of a conversation. It's not to say that they're just going to be collecting information. They're going to be getting information and also providing feedback to each one of the stakeholders to let them know what their feedback meant to them in the context of the integration. Right? Another challenge. Oh, the one that you mentioned as well, Tariq, was insufficient training and poor planning. So that one, the doctors and nurses, this being a brand new digital workflow, they're going to have to understand how this system works since it's a case where it's going to be a shift away from the existing process, right? So it's not to say that, the IT team is going to do their work and at the end of the process, they're just going to go live, flip a switch, and everybody's supposed to just know what to do. That's not the case at all, or that shouldn't be the case rather. Training and educational programs as a best practice needs to be implemented before the project goes live. It's a case where everybody needs to be made aware and educated on the different changes that are going to be implemented way before, well in advance, before the system goes live. So that when the system goes live, it is a smooth transition over from the old process into the new process. It does not interrupt business as usual, right? How we feel about those? Are we comfortable? Just a few of the different points that we could have made based on this scenario. Are we in agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the type of thinking that your future assessments, I keep mentioning future assessments and I never tell you anything about assessments. I really need to get back to you guys on this. But yeah, is this kind of thinking that future assessments would require of you? Not just picking out the concepts from a list, but also being able to see how challenges can arise when they're not explicitly mentioned, and also being able to figure out what best practice combats those challenges. Yeah. So you need to be able to think like a system integrator, identify challenges, and make recommendations. Yeah. All right. So I feel like we've covered a whole lot tonight. So we can wrap up for now. And well, I guess let me ask you, are there any questions? Anything we need to reiterate? Anything you want me to consider for next class? Or are we good?
Good, sir.
Am I good?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So let me see. Oh, wait. Friday's holiday. We're not having class Friday. All right. That gives me more time to think or more time to forget to think. Well, yeah, let me see if I can get back to you guys on some more information about upcoming assignments since semester is coming up to a close. We will not meet on Friday since it's a holiday. So I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. Keep an eye on Canvas in case I'm making any announcements about assessments. But yeah. All right. Cool. So I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Take care.
Take care, sir.
Okay.